Year 2, week 11. Separation season. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back to another DNS address. We are deep into November now, and this is where college football starts separating teams into categories: playoff contender, conference contender, bowl team, teams fighting to become bowl eligible, and teams already wondering what changes need to happen next year. Week 11 gave us a little bit of everything. Georgia Tech reached 10-0. Georgia Southern scored 63 on Marshall. South Florida's Heisman front runner went back to over 200 yards. John Borello somehow produced 327 yards from scrimmage and 5 touchdowns. Texas State knocked off number 14 Boise State. Northern Illinois exploded for 52. Sac State won by 38. And Troy lost on an 82-yard touchdown with 3 seconds remaining. 3 seconds. That's not enough time to process the touchdown, much less answer it. The contenders are separating, the pressure is building, and the finish line is getting close. This is separation season. Let's get into it. Our headline of the week was Georgia Tech reaches 10-0. Number 2 Georgia Tech entered week 11 with perfection still intact, and the Yellow Jackets did exactly what championship contenders are supposed to do. They handled business. Georgia Tech wins 33-7. Clutts was outstanding, 23 of 33, 305 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also added 50 rushing yards. Malik Shaw absolutely torched the secondary, 6 receptions, 141 yards, 3 touchdowns. 3 of Clutts' 4 touchdown passes were directly to Shaw. Gatling added another 62 receiving yards. Korma rushed for 115. The defense held the opponents to 7 points. Tae Harris recorded 11 tackles and 4 of those for loss. Matt Sharno added an interception. This was not dramatic. This was not chaotic. This was not one of those games where Georgia Tech had to survive. It was simply a top 2 team taking care of business. The Yellow Jackets improved to 10-0, still number 2, still unbeaten, still controlling their own path to the college football playoffs. And next week brings something much bigger. Number 13 Clemson travels to Georgia Tech. Top 15 opponent, perfect season, late November. This is why you play college football. Georgia Southern dropped 63. Number 16 Georgia Southern traveled to Marshall 1 week after surviving that wild 50-42 user showdown with Troy. There was always a danger of emotional letdown. Apparently, nobody informed Georgia Southern, though. The Eagles win 63-28, 63 points. Weston Bryant threw for 139 yards on a touchdown while adding 51 yards on the ground. Freshman quarterback Cesar Alvo entered the game and completed his only pass for 22 yards. But Georgia Southern did most of its damage the way Coach Bennett prefers, on the ground. Taeo Todd carried 21 times for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. J.J. Bradley, you may ask, 7 carries, 80 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown. 4 touchdowns on 9 offensive touches. That is not a workload. That is a robbery. Tyrese Woodgett added 2 more rushing touchdowns. Between Todd, Bradley, and Woodgett, Georgia Southern scored 7 rushing touchdowns. The defense joined the party, had 4 sacks, 3 interceptions, 1 forced fumble. Emmett Walker recorded 13 tackles, a sack, and an interception. Idris Farouk added 11 tackles. Onyx. My dog is trying to eat a step. And J.J. Kirtland returned an interception, 60 yards for a touchdown. Everybody ate. As you guys can see, she's trying to eat now. Georgia Southern improves 9-1. The Eagles now sit at number 16 and host UL Monroe next week. At this point, Georgia Southern is not trying to prove it belongs. The Eagles are trying to finish the job. John Varello has lost his mind. Appalachian State traveled to Old Dominion, and Varello decided to submit another Heisman application. Old Dominion wins 49-35. Ricky Burns was nearly perfect through the air. 16 of 19, 213 yards, 1 touchdown. He also rushed for another score. But we need to discuss John. 33 carries, 243 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, 6 receptions, 84 receiving yards, a receiving touchdown. Let's add that up. 327 yards from scrimmage, 5 touchdowns. That is not a stat line. That is somebody playing Road to Glory on freshman difficulty. Valerio earned the National Offensive Player of the Week again, and somehow he remains number 2 in the Heisman race. Old Dominion's defense recorded 5.5 sacks and 3 interceptions. Jeffrey Defers returned one of those interceptions, 29 yards for a touchdown. The Monarchs improved to 7-3. Southern Miss visits next week. The season has had its up and down, and John Varello, there has been nothing inconsistent about him. He is playing one of the best. He's having one of the best years in the country right now. Sorry. South Florida keeps the Heisman train moving as well. Navy traveled to number 8 South Florida. The Bulls win 49-21. MVB Jr. threw for 261 and 5 touchdowns. Yes, 5. Sampson Jr. caught 9 passes for 108 yards and a touchdown, and Joe Jackson returned to the 200-yard club. 23 carries, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns. Another week, another 200-yard game, another South Florida win. Jackson remains number 1 in the Heisman race. Sampson remains inside the national conversation as well. South Florida's defense recorded 5 sacks. Special teams had a rougher afternoon with Nico Gramatica missing 2 field goals. But when the offense puts 49 on the board, tends to be a footnote. South Florida improves to 9-1 and sits at number 8. UTSA comes to town next week. The Bulls are still firmly alive in the conference race, and Joe Jackson remains the player everyone is chasing. Texas State gets its statement win. Number 14, Boise State traveled to Texas State, and the Bobcats delivered one of the biggest wins of year 2. Texas State wins 23-17. It was not pretty. Risling completed 10 of 21 passes for 107 yards. He threw 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Normally, that's part where things go sideways. However, Cole Pryor refused to let that happen. 30 carries, 178 yards, 1 touchdown. Texas State put the offense on Pryor's shoulders and said, take us home. The defense was able to record 3 sacks. Rico Alfonso connected on 3 field goals, and despite losing the turnover battle, Texas State found a way to beat a ranked opponent. Remember when this team started 0-4? The Bobcats are now 5-5, 5 wins in their last 6 games. 1 more victory. Texas State becomes bowl eligible. 1. That is one of the best turnarounds happening anywhere in the Dynasty. Texas State travels to Utah State next week from 0-4 to 1 win away from the bowl. College football is a funny like that. Sacramento State cruises. Sacramento State hosted Miami of Ohio. The Hornets win 45-7. This was domination. Sam Babcock completed 16 of 24 passes for 189 and 2 touchdowns. Godley rushed for 18 times for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rainey added 71 yards and another touchdown. Moses caught 6 passes for 57 and a score. The defense recorded 4 sacks and 3 interceptions. Ethan Turney returned one of those picks for 47 yards for a touchdown. Sacramento State improves to 7-3. That is now 7 victories for the team that spent portions of early season treating interceptions like a weekly subscription service. The Hornets have settled down. They are running the football. They are creating turnovers, and they are winning. Ohio visits Sacramento State next week. Do not overlook what is happening here. This has quietly become a strong season. Northern Illinois finally cashes in. Northern Illinois has had some strange losses this season. 54 points at Wyoming, loss. Overtime at UNLV, loss. Week after week, the Huskies have shown flashes without finishing. Nevada came to town. Northern Illinois finished. The Huskies win 52-34. Brown completed 23 of 45 passes for 282 and 2 touchdowns. Coolidge had a huge afternoon. 22 carries, 123 yards, 3 touchdowns, 8 receptions for another 51 yards. Johnny Tongs added 16 carries for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. That means between Coolidge and Tongs, they combined for 237 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. The defense also helped out with 6 sacks and interception. Northern Illinois improves to 2-8. No, this is not the save of the season, but after the number of close games that slipped away, this one matters. Sometimes the first step toward changing the program is simply learning how to finish. Air Force visits next week. Mississippi State falls back to 500. They travel to number 10 Oklahoma, looking for a victory that would make the Bulldogs bowl eligible. Oklahoma comes out with the win 38-21. Max Coolidge threw for 237 and a touchdown, but he also threw three interceptions and was sacked three times. PhD produced 68 total yards and somehow scored three touchdowns, two rushing, one receiving. He also remains remarkably good at finding that end zone. Marquise Johnson caught 10 passes for 102 yards. The Mississippi State defense recorded two sacks and an interception, but the turnovers were too much to overcome. Three interceptions against a top 10 opponent usually results in exactly this. Mississippi State falls to 5-5, and now the situation becomes very simple. Two games remain, one win needed. South Carolina visits Starksville next week. Bowl eligibility is sitting right there. Go take it. Heartbreaker for Troy this week. Troy traveled to Coastal Carolina looking to respond after the emotional loss to Georgia Southern. The Trojans were seconds away from doing it. Coastal Carolina pulls out a win 27-24. Woodgett was able to throw for 242 and three touchdowns. Jordan Lovett had an outstanding afternoon. 26 carries, 209 rushing yards, 5 receptions for 38 yards, 1 touchdown. Miles caught 5 passes for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. Troy was in position. The Trojans had the late lead, and then came the nightmare. 3 seconds left. Coastal Carolina tight end Ryder Kush had an 82-yard touchdown. Game over. Though that's a heartbreaking loss. And then there are losses where you have 3 seconds left and somehow surrender an 82-yard touchdown. That one will stay with you. Wayne Alfonso as well missed a field goal early in the game, and a 3-point loss. Every missed point becomes part of the story. Troy falls to falls to 8-3 and enters a bye week. 2 consecutive losses, both painful for a completely different reason. The bye arrives at exactly the right time. Reset, regroup, get healthy, then finish. Central Michigan comes up short. Buffalo traveled to Central Michigan and escaped with a 16-12 victory. Quentin Snead completed 13 of 30 passes for 115 and a touchdown. He threw 2 picks and was sacked 4 times. One of those interceptions became a 57-yard pick six by Buffalo corner Mickey Crawford. In a 4-point game, that was enormous. Trav Moore rushed for 72 yards. Von Blue was held to 29 rushing yards. Bush caught 2 passes for 54 yards, and Central Michigan's only touchdown. The Chippewas defense did its job. 1 sack, 2 interceptions, 16 points allowed. That should give you a chance to win. The offense simply did not create enough. Central Michigan falls to 2-8. Ball State visits next week. The Chippewas have shown they can win. Now they need consistency. Our stock-ups of the week, number 2, Georgia Tech with 10-0. Nothing else to be said. Number 16, Georgia Southern, 63 points 1 week 63 points 1 week after an emotional ranked victory. This is how contenders avoid the letdown. Old Dominion, 7 wins, a bounce-back victory, and a running back producing video game numbers. Texas State started 0-4, now 5-5, beat number 14 Boise. 1 win from bowl eligibility. Let's keep going. Sacramento State has 7 wins, another dominant performance. The Hornets are quietly putting together one of the strongest second halves of the Dynasty. Our need more film, Troy's late game defense. 3 seconds, 82 yards. There's no compiled analysis required. That can't happen. Mississippi State's turnovers, 3 interceptions against number 10 Oklahoma. The Bulldogs are good enough to be bowl eligible. They need to stop beating themselves. Central Michigan's offense, the defense allowed only 16 points. 12 offensive points was not enough. Our Week 11 honors National Offensive Player of the Week was halfback John Barilla from Old Dominion. And our Defensive Player of the Week is free safety KJ Kirkland from Georgia Southern with a 16-yard pick six. Built Not Given award for this week goes to Texas State. There's something different about this one. Texas State started year 2 0-4. The turnovers piled up. The losses piled up. There were moments where the season could have completely gotten away from them. Instead, the Bobcats kept playing. They have won 4 of 5, then beat number 14 Boise State when they came to town. Texas State did throw 3 interceptions. The game was ugly. They could have folded. Instead, Cole Pryor carried the football 30 times. The defense held Boise to 17 points. Rico Alfonso had 3 field goals, and Texas State finished the upset. Now they are 5-5, 1 win away from bowl eligibility. That turnaround was built. It was not given. Our Heisman watch, no change to the order. Joe Jackson, John Varillo, and Shelton Sampson Jr. Our Week 12 game of the week is going to be number 13 Clemson at number 2 Georgia Tech. This is the game. Georgia Tech's 10-0. The Yellow Jackets are 2 in the country. The college football playoffs are right in front of them. And number 13 Clemson is coming to town. Georgia Tech has handled road games. They've survived close games. They've won shootouts. They've won with defense. They've won with special teams. Now comes another ranked test. The closer you get to perfection, the heavier that zero becomes. Clemson has nothing to lose. Georgia Tech has everything in front of them. This is November college football. Our Week 12 spotlights. UL Monroe visits number 16 Georgia Southern. UTSA travels to number 8 South Florida. Southern Miss visits Old Dominion. South Carolina visits Mississippi State with the Bulldogs 1 win away. Utah State visits or host Texas State with the Bobcats 1 win away as well. Ohio visits Sacramento State. Air Force travels to Northern Illinois. Ball State visits Central Michigan. Troy gets a much-needed bye week. And number 13 Clemson visits number 2 Georgia Tech. The stakes are clear now. The 10 wins, bowl eligibility, conference positioning, the playoffs, and the Heisman. Week 11 has created separation. Georgia Tech being 10-0 and 2 wins away from a perfect regular season. Georgia Southern is 9-1 after a 63-point win. South Florida is 9-1 with the Heisman front runner. Old Dominion has 7 wins, and John Barillo just produced 327 yards and 5 touchdowns. Sac State has quietly reached 7 wins. Troy State has gone from 0-4, Texas State has gone from 0-4 to 5-5 and just knocked off number 14 Boise. Northern Illinois finally turned offensive production into a win. Mississippi State is 1 victory away from bowl eligibility. Central Michigan still fighting, and Troy learned just how cruel November can be. 3 seconds, 1 play, 82-yard, season change. That is college football. The margins get smaller as the games get bigger, and now we enter Week 12. The finish line is visible. Championships are within reach. Bowl invitations are waiting. Heisman ballots are taking shape, and number 2 Georgia Tech perfection is still alive. As they say this time of year, win and advance. Do not worry about style points. Do not worry about everybody else. Handle your business, because in November, survive long enough and they will eventually put you into the conversation. In the Department of Natural Selection, you select, we collect, built, not given.